like in 2009 we were finally going to see a bit of a youth movement in WWE. Yes, the old guard and established stars were still very much on top, but talented performers like Kofi Kingston, Cody Rhodes, Ted DiBiase Jr., Drew McIntyre, Jack Swagger, and Evan Bourne were all busting their humps and making a name for themselves. In 2009, dependable grapplers from previous eras were let go, while some who once looked like they could be the future of the company said their goodbyes. The main event scene, while still populated with the Ortons, Triple H's, Undertakers, Cenas, and Edges of the world, got a little fresher thanks to CM Punk and Jeff Hardy and a newcomer called Sheamus. Not so fresh was another reformation of D-Generation X, but at least the Rascals were putting in a shift and trying to elevate new talent when they weren't mucking about with Hornswoggle, that is. The women's division may have had 2 belts to fight over, but as had been the case for a while, the ladies of Raw and SmackDown weren't the primary focus of the writing staff. So how did all of this talent do when it came to where it counts, on pay-per-view? Well, there were 14 pay-per-views in 2009, which is probably too many, but who am I to complain about having some extra wrestling to sample, eh? Well, I am one to grumble if that wrestling is rubbish, but was it? I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and this is every WWE pay-per-view of 2009 ranked from worst to best. Join us. Number 14, Breaking Point. Number 14, and I've already reached my breaking point. Breaking Point, another one-time only pay-per-view event name and concept, was centered around wrestlers getting each other to quit. If they wanted to do that, why not just throw their bags in the shower and take them to wrestlers' court like the good old days? Since the show was in Montreal, it couldn't pass without reenacting a famous screwjob from 12 years ago, because by this point, the only people who weren't letting go were Vince McMahon and company. In the main event submission match, CM Punk retained the World Heavyweight title against The Undertaker when the bell rung, even though the dead man hadn't given up. And please remember that these were the pre-network days when you actually had to buy the individual shows for not an inconsiderable sum of money. The match up to the finish had just been okay. Much better was the DX vs Legacy Submissions Count Anywhere match. A star-making turn from Rhodes and DiBiase Jr., the relative rookies were given a big win here when they took out Triple H long enough to make Shawn Michaels submit after a wild and inventive match that went all over the arena. Other good action came courtesy of the John Cena Randy Orton I Quit match, which had a really cool finish. Orton and Cena were handcuffed together when Big Match John managed to lock on the STF, using the cuss for leverage to get Orton to throw in the towel. Christian and William Regal's ECW title match was also decent, while Kofi Kingston and The Miz's US title match and Jericho's defense of the tag team titles against Mark Henry and MVP were both fine. Not so good was a Kane vs Great Khali Singapore Kane match and a rather pathetic skit where Dolph Ziggler roasted hometown boy Pat Patterson with jokes not even fit for Jerry Lawler's big book of corny one-liners. Overall, there was some good stuff here, but also plenty of filler and some quite questionable booking. Number 13, The Bash. The Bash. Seriously, The Bash. No Great American or At the Beach, it's just The Bash. WWE's creative staff were clearly firing on all cylinders when they came up with this ultra-expressive pay-per-view name, and I'm happy to say, they were putting just as much effort into the booking of the card itself. An ECW title scramble match kicked things off, with the match lasting 15 minutes and the title changing hands several times before the clock ran out. In the end, Tommy Dreamer walked out as he walked in, despite the title playing hot potato between Jack Swagger, Finlay, and Mark Henry. The second match of the night was far and away the best on the show, and ranked as one of the best of the whole year for that fact. Rey Mysterio won the Intercontinental title from Chris Jericho in a scintillating mask versus title match that played brilliantly off their previous encounters and kept the audience guessing right up until the incredibly inventive finish. Y2J ripping off the biggest little man's mask only to reveal another sitting underneath, the shock of it all leading Jericho to fell victim to the 619 and a big splash. It's safe to say that Dolph Ziggler and the Great Khali couldn't quite follow that, but just think of it as a 10-minute window to go and eat a bowl of cereal if you fancy. Jericho sauntered back out to successfully team with Edge to win the WWE Tag Team titles, dethroning Primo and Carlito in a match that also featured Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase Jr. Not Not a lot to the match, but the result instantly elevated a pair of titles that had been an afterthought for much too long. Michelle McCool beat Melina for the women's title, and while the work was good, nobody in the audience really cared because WWE hadn't given them a reason to. Jeff Hardy and CM Punk's World Heavyweight title match was a precursor of better matches to come, and was more about the slow burn of Punk's inevitable heel turn. For the finish, Punk got disqualified after accidentally nailing the referee with an errant kick. Sure, accidentally. Just like I was accidentally voted the Isle of Wight's 39th most eligible bachelor in 2014. There are no accidents in life, people, just the handsome unmarried. Speaking of, look, it's John Cena, and he's battering The Miz. The more things change. And finally, Randy Orton retained the WWE title against Triple H in a 3 stages of hell match, singles, falls count anywhere, and then stretcher, which was every Triple H Orton match you've ever seen, spread across a trio match type. Number 12, Hell in a Cell. Ah yes, the first Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, where we finally diluted the stipulation more than a pint of Robinson's fruit squash. With 3 cell matches on offer, nobody could rightly say they didn't get enough cell for their money, but 3 of these things is probably, again, too many. The show opened with a cell match and a title change, The Undertaker beating CM Punk for the World Heavyweight title in surprisingly swift fashion. If you believe backstage rumors from the time, the loss was booked as a punishment for the straight-edge superstar questioning the company's dress code. Of course, if you believe every internet wrestling rumor, you probably believe anything, so let me tell you about these magic beans I have for sale. Dolph Ziggler and John Morrison had a canny match over the Intercontinental title, which, while technically good, suffered from the crowd not caring too much. Maybe if they weren't feuding because Morrison called his opponent Mr. Ziggles? Mickie James and Alicia Fox's Divas title match had 1 or 2 nice moves, but they didn't really flow very well. Much better was Batista and Rey Mysterio, fresh off a wellness policy suspension, teaming up to take on Jericho for the unified tag team titles. Everyone looked good here, and the 2 teams made great use of the size dynamics until Show punched Mysterio so hard he almost took his mask off. John Cena versus Randy Orton inside Hell in a Cell was, well, John Cena versus Randy Orton, only this time in a cell. It was good in parts and had some nice set pieces, but it wasn't a classic or anything. The Viper beat the leader of the C Nation to win the WWE title. Drew McIntyre versus R-Truth and Kofi Kingston defending the US title against Miz and Jack Swagger were both fine for what they were, and then it was time for the main event. A much more serious DX took on Legacy inside the cell, and once again, Rhodes and DiBiase Jr. attempted to take out the game long enough to work over and get the victory over Michaels, going so far as to lock Trips outside the steel structure. This, of course, only works to a point, because eventually he will get mad, and he will come back, and he will kill you, which is just what happened. Cody and Ted bowing to their masters and getting their heads caved in good and proper. See you back in the mid-card, gentlemen. Number 11, Night of Champions. How many title matches can you take in one night? I hope the answer's 8, because that's how many we have at Night of Champions 2009, with every belt across Raw, SmackDown, and ECW up for grabs. The night started with Chris Jericho announcing The Big Show as his new tag team partner, replacing the injured Edge. A disappointment on the night, maybe, but the Jericho team blossomed into one of the highlights of the year. Their first match here, a successful defense against Legacy, got the ball rolling. Christian beat Tommy Dreamer for the ECW title in a hard-worked match. The Six-Pack Challenge US title match featuring champion Kofi Kingston, MVP, Carlito, Primo, Miz, and Jack Swagger was never in any danger of being boring, and it was kept short and action-packed. Michelle McCool retained the women's title in a surprisingly intense match with Melina. They set the tone early here when Mrs. Calloway drop-kicked her opponent as she was mid-splits on the ring apron. As usual though, this was the shortest match on the card. Randy Orton retained his WWE title against Triple H and John Cena in the usual match you would expect between these 3 pros. Thick, solid, tight, etc. Mickie James beat Maurice to capture the Divas title. Rey Mysterio got past Dolph Ziggler in a really energetic match between 2 of the year's standout performers, and in the main event and the best match of the night, Jeff Hardy beat CM Punk for the World Heavyweight title. Number 10, WrestleMania 25. WrestleMania 25 now, the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, even though it's actually not, and don't bother telling WWE because they've already knocked up the collectible cups. WrestleMania 25 was a pretty weak one all told, but it did have one of the greatest matches ever going for it, so there's that. Indeed, the Shawn Michaels vs. Undertaker show stealer loses none of its impact with subsequent viewings. Two accomplished pros going hell for leather for half an hour, risking their necks and proving to the world why they are two of the best ever to lace up a pair of boots, or put on a pair of chaps, or apply just the right amount of mascara. You look lovely, Mark. The streak remained intact, but Mr. WrestleMania gave as good as he got, and really, this match needed to go on last and not third from the top. While nothing came close to match Michaels vs. Taker, there was some good action to be found elsewhere. The Money in the Bank ladder match was your typically entertaining car crash, and Chris Jericho vs. The Legends really picked up when Ricky Steamboat was in there and proved that he still had plenty in the tank some 15 years after retiring. Matt and Jeff Hardy collided in a brutal brother vs. brother Extreme Rules match. John Cena captured the World Heavyweight title in an impactful triple threat match with The Big Show and Edge. And Rey Mysterio won the Intercontinental title from JBL in 21 seconds, followed by the loudmouth Texan retiring in his home state. All sounds decent, right? Well, let's get on to the not so good. Santina Marella winning the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal? Pass. Mini Kid Rock concert? Double pass. Triple H and Randy Orton in a dull as dishwater 25-minute main event? Pa. Number 9, TLC. Now, I'm no mathematician or anything, but I'm pretty sure that Christian vs. Shelton Benjamin plus some ladders equals a great match. The two veterans of the ladder wars began TLC 2009 in some style, producing a gripping ECW title match filled with unique spots, dangerous moves, and lots of drama. Captain Charisma retained. John Morrison wasn't so fortunate in the next match though, losing his Intercontinental title to the insurgent Drew McIntyre. The Chosen One was a long way off from becoming the performer he would develop into, but he was still pretty damn good, and Morrison was the right type of opponent for him here. The storyline surrounding it may have been distasteful, but at least Michelle McCool and Mickie James had a real issue to fight over, which added to the proceedings here and helped the match. Sheamus won his first WWE title in a tables match against John Cena in another look at the future of the company. The Celtic Warrior had only been around for 6 months before finding himself on top of the pile. The pile of big, sweaty, half-naked men. The Undertaker defeated Batista in a World Heavyweight title chairs match, not up to the standard of some of their previous belters, but this was still plenty physical, and the Animal and the Phenom have always had good chemistry together. Moving on, did you really think that Kofi Kingston was going to beat Randy Orton here? What are you? Stupid? Stupid! That's what. Though this was a false dawn for Kofi, the match wasn't half bad, and the New Day member didn't look out of place locking up with one of the company's top stars. And in the main event, DX beat Jericho to capture the tag titles in a nutty TLC match. Not a bad way to close out the year. Number 8, Judgment Day. Judgment Day 2009 took place in Chicago, so if nothing else, at least it's going to have a hot crowd. And hey, here's hometown favourite CM Punk out for the opener, taking on Umaga. Oh, he looks good. That's it, Punk. Use your kicks. Avoid the spike. Yes, here comes the GT. Oh, he's lost. Oh well, so much for enjoying things. Despite the decision to have the hometown boy lose in his backyard again, Punk and Umaga gelled together nicely, and the match was a good one. Also good was Christian's ECW title defense against Jack Swagger and John Morrison beating Shelton Benjamin. However, considering the talent of the Gold Standard and the Shaman of Sexy, you do perhaps expect a little bit more. Two men who never underwhelm when pitted against each other are Rey Mysterio and Chris Jericho. Even though they had better pay-per-view matches in 2009, their Intercontinental title scuffle here was still a superior contest. Mysterio retained. Randy Orton and Batista's WWE title match was a bit clunky and too long for that kind of finish, the Legend Killer getting himself intentionally disqualified by slapping the referee. The post-match shenanigans with Legacy and Ric Flair at least livened things up a little. Nothing, though, was going to liven up John Cena versus The Big Show. Another snooze fest from these two here. And in the main event, Edge retained his World Heavyweight title over Jeff Hardy thanks to interference from Matt. It was good, as you would expect, but didn't really feel like a big-time pay-per-view main event. Apt because this didn't feel like a must-see show, even if watching it won't ruin your day or anything. Number 7. Extreme Rules. Another good show stuffed with memorable matches and storyline developments. The thing everyone was talking about coming out of the show was CM Punk cashing in his Money in the Bank contract to beat Jeff Hardy for the World Heavyweight title. The charismatic Enigma had already been through hell, aka a long and grueling ladder match against Edge, in which he won the belt from the Rated R Superstar. With Hardy probably feeling as rough as I did the day after my sixth form ball, Punk waltzed out and after hitting 2 GTSs was a 2-time World Heavyweight champion. Earlier in the night, Punk had beaten Umaga in a very good, skin-tearing Samoan strap match in what turned out to be Umaga's last match in the company. Elsewhere, Batista won the WWE title from Randy Orton in a short cage match, even though he was suffering from a biceps injury and would vacate the title 2 days later. Tommy Dreamer won the ECW title in a triple threat Extreme Rules match featuring Christian and Jack Swagger. Kofi Kingston retained his US title in another multi-man affair, seeing off Matt Hardy, MVP, and William Regal. Santina Marella beat Vicky and Chavo Guerrero in, and I'm sorry to say this, a 2-on-1 handicap Miss WrestleMania Crown hog pen match. I'm sure at least Vince had a laugh at this one. John Cena beat The Big Show in a submission match. The only thing extreme about it was how extremely boring it was. Haha, please don't hurt me, fellas. And in one of the best matches of the night, Chris Jericho beat Rey Mysterio for the IC title in the latest chapter of their incredible saga. The finish here, Y2J pulling Mysterio's mask off mid-619, is one of the most ingenious you are likely to ever see. Number 6. Bragging rights. Are you Team Red or Team Blue? Is Raw your jam, or are you a SmackDown kind of person? Whichever side of the fence you sit on, buckle up because tonight is the biggest night of the year for people who care about brand supremacy. Yes, it's bragging rights, where titles don't matter as much as sticking up for the show you wrestle on. The first match was an inter-promotional affair. US Champion The Miz and Intercontinental Champion John Morrison duking it out for the first of the bragging rights on offer. It certainly helped that these two have a history together, as they were able to mirror their chemistry as a team when opponents. Miz got the win and the first victory of the night for Raw. SmackDown tied it up next as the women of the Blue brand, Beth Phoenix, Michelle McCool and Natalya, beat Raw's Gail Kim, Kelly Kelly and Melina in a typical 6-woman tag. Any combination of The Undertaker, CM Punk, Batista and Rey Mysterio is guaranteed quality, so sticking the 4 of them out there for 10 minutes and asking them to trade big moves wasn't a bad idea. Everyone played their role well here, and the pace never let up. After the match, Batista finally turned heel by decapitating Mysterio. I mean, he could have just taken his mask off. The whole head seemed a tad unnecessary, but who am I to argue with such a massive, angry man? The bragging rights, though, went to SmackDown after they won a super fun 14-man tag match when Raw's Big Show turned on his own team to give the victory to his regular tag partner, Chris Jericho. The Big Show unexpectedly turning on someone for thinly veiled reasons. Boy, I hope that doesn't become a trope over the next, say, decade of WWE TV. There was a lot of action to digest, but why was it so short? You'd think that with that much talent involved that management would allocate them a, oh yeah, there was an hour-long Iron Man match still to go. Cena and Orton followed in the footsteps of Brett and Shawn and The Rock and Triple H and Lesnar and Angle and put on an absolutely bonkers match much different from the predecessors. I always said that the one thing that would have made Hart and Michaels at WrestleMania 12 better was if Brett had tried to blow Shawn up with pyro. It takes 2 special talents to make an hour-long match work, and Cena and Orton did a commendable job here, and the match was a blast to watch. Cena won it in the end 6 falls to 5, getting a submission in the dying seconds to prevent overtime. Number 5, Survivor Series. A pair of fine world title matches and a couple of talent-stuffed traditional Survivor Series tag team matches made this one well worth the investment. The 2 world title matches were triple threat affairs, with champions of both Raw and SmackDown having to face off with members of high-ranking tag teams, making for some distinctive dynamics. In the first, Undertaker defended his World Heavyweight title against Chris Jericho and Big Show in a match that was very gripping, you idiot. It took a while for Jericho to implode, but once they did, all bets were off and the dissension allowed the dead man to walk out still champion. It didn't take long for DX members Shawn Michaels and Triple H to break break up the band in their match with John Cena. The first move, in fact, as HBK blasted the game with Sweet Chin music seconds after the opening bell. Nobody saw that one coming, and it set the tone for the match to come, a well-worthy main event that saw Cena retain his WWE title. As for the traditional Survivor Series tags, WWE's mid-card heel squad looked strong in the opener, Team Miz, Ziggler, McIntyre, Swagger, Sheamus, and Mr. Mizanin rolling over Team Morrison, Finlay, Evan Bourne, Matt Hardy, Shelton Benjamin, and Mr. Nitro in a good match. In the other, Team Orton, Punk, Rhodes, DiBiase Jr., Regal, and Randy fell to Team Kingston, Christian, Henry, MVP, R-Truth, and Kofi in a contest that made Kingston look like a star. If only he wasn't so bloody stupid. Stupid! In the Women's Survivor Series tag, Team Mickey, Eve, Gail Kim, Kelly Kelly, Melina, and James bested Team McCool, Alicia Fox, Beth Phoenix, Jillian, Layla, and Michelle, which was pretty good going and got much better in the last couple of minutes once it was down to the final four. And Batista beat Rey Mysterio by referee stoppage in what was more of an angle than a match, but served to really put the animal over as an unstoppable monster. Number 4, Royal Rumble. It's the Rumble, get in! I love the Rumble. Even a crap Rumble can be good, but thankfully, the 2009 match was a valuable one. The undercard was canny too, kicking off with a solid ECW title match between Jack Swagger and Matt Hardy, the All-American American getting the better of his more experienced opponent. Man, that loss looked like it really shook Matt up. I hope he's alright. I hope he doesn't show up again later to ruin something. Beth Phoenix had fun torturing Melina, but ended up losing the women's title in a good match considering the standards of the time. John Cena retained his World Heavyweight title against JBL in what wasn't exactly a sparkling clash, but did serve well as a backdrop to the ongoing Shawn Michaels existential crisis drama. A much better title match followed, Edge looking to wrest the WWE title away from Jeff Hardy when they met with no disqualifications. A thrilling spectacle, as you would expect from these two, the counters, big stunts, and false finishes kept everyone guessing until Matt Hardy came out and turned on his brother, blasting him with a chair and allowing Edge to slither over and regain the gold. Word is that this was supposed to feature the return of Christian, but when that information leaked out, it was changed to the Matt turn instead. WWE changing plans once sensitive storyline information is leaked? Well, I have it on good authority that Aleister Black is scheduled to shockingly win the WWE title soon. Hope they don't put it on someone else now, someone like Mojo Rawley? And now the Royal Rumble. A right stately scrap, the 2009 Rumble demonstrated the true depth of WWE's roster. Rey Mysterio put in a hell of a shift, Santino Marella got the record-setting elimination, Undertaker came in and cleaned house, Cody and Goldust had a moment, Rob Van Dam showed up for the first time in over a year to a big pop, and in the end, Legacy came together to oust Triple H, giving Randy Orton his first Rumble win. Number 3, SummerSlam. Put down the hamburger, slap some aloe vera on those burns, you pasty nerds, and join me for SummerSlam 2009. While there was a bit of fluff here and there, this was a show that delivered where it promised and set up several feuds as we headed into the autumn. In the main event, CM Punk beat Jeff Hardy to win the World Heavyweight title in a kamikaze TLC match. In what was the Rainbow-Haired Warrior's last big match before departing the company, he certainly didn't half-arse it, giving everything he had to put on a breathtaking display with his straight-edge foe. After the match, the lights went out and The Undertaker appeared, chokeslamming Punk, instantly putting the new champ on notice. DX reformed to take on Legacy in a coming-out party of sorts for Ted and Cody. Showing their enormous potential on the big stage, Orton's minions kept up with the pair of NXT dads, having them scouted every step of the way and only losing because Dusty's son got his chin kicked off. Randy Orton beat John Cena to retain the WWE title in a match that was restarted 3 times. That's probably, say it with me now, 2 times too many, and as a result, this is not one of their best remembered bouts. Rey Mysterio retained his Intercontinental title against Dolph Ziggler in a wonderful opener, the show-off's reputation enhancing with another excellent performance. And Jericho retained the tag titles against Crime Time in the dependable Jericho Formula match. Oh yeah, let's get on to the fluff. Kane and the Great Khali presented their interpretation of a wrestling match yet again. Sometimes you just have to accept these things and move on. MVP beat Jack Swagger in a nothing match, and Christian regained the ECW title against William Regal in 7 seconds when he caught our lordship with a kill switch while disrobing. Not the worst thing to ever happen to Regal when he took his robe off, mind you. Number 2, No Way Out. If you ordered No Way Out for 2 impeccable world title elimination chamber matches, then you got what you paid for. You also got more than you paid for because there was a bunch of other great stuff sandwiched in the gooey middle. In the first match, the WWE title chamber match, Edge was defending against Big Show, Triple H, Jeff Hardy, The Undertaker, and Vladimir Kozlov. Spot the odd one out there, folks. And rather shockingly, Edge lost the title within the first few minutes when he was surprised with a roll-up from Hardy before anyone else had even been released from their pods. That certainly ramped up the intrigue some, as we knew we were due a new champ, and anyone not named Vladimir Kozlov had a fair shot of winning the thing. After plenty of spine-jarring action, it came down to Triple H and The Undertaker, those 2 old warhorses, with the game nailing a pedigree to win what had been a Match of the Year candidates, especially when they got rid of our pal Vlad. Super tough street fighter Shane McMahon fancied his chances against ice-cold psychopath Randy Orton. Being as tough as he is, he even managed to single-handedly take out the interfering Legacy and, rather inexplicably, looked Orton's equal as he twatted him about with weapons before falling victim to an RKO out of nowhere. Jack Swagger's ECW title defense against Finlay was routine but technically sound, while JBL's meeting with Shawn Michaels was not the sexy boy's finest hour, but it did have drama and a good storyline going into it. And in the main event, John Cena defended his World Heavyweight title against Chris Jericho, Rey Mysterio, Kane, Kofi Kingston, and Mike Knox inside the chamber. Again, spot the odd one out there. And wait a minute, what's this? That dastardly opportunist Edge has attacked Kingston, brained him with a chair and taken his place. Thanks for playing, Kofi. Another sterling chamber match, this one also guaranteed a new champ relatively early on when Cena was eliminated third. Eventually the match boiled down to Edge and Ray, and the man who had lost his title in the first match of the night made up for it by winning the company's other major prize. A great hook to end on with the last major stop on the road to WrestleMania. Number 1, Backlash. Backlash was a professional wrestling pay-per-view produced by World Wrestling Entertainment. It took place on April 26, 2009 at the Dunkin' Donuts Center in Providence, Rhode Island. The 11th event under the Backlash banner, it involved talent from all 3 WWE brands, Raw, SmackDown, and ECW. It was the final Backlash event until 2016. It was a good show. What, you've never got to the end of a long assignment, thought sod it, and consulted your old pal Wikipedia for help? Fine, let me submit that again, sir. Backlash was a grand old time, with most of the matches being better than their WrestleMania counterparts, and the card, on the whole, only had one real regrettable thing on it. In the opener, Jack Swagger continued to impress as he dropped the ECW title to the very popular Christian. Chris Jericho beat Ricky Steamboat in another superb showing from the Dragon. Kane defeated recent Money in the Bank ladder match winner CM Punk in an odd decision. Match was fine otherwise. Jeff Hardy avenged his Mania loss by getting his bastard brother to say "I quit" before smashing him through a table anyway. I'm not going to upset you all by recapping the segment and match with Great Khali, Santina, and Beth Phoenix. Just be warned that it is there. The WWE title was on the line in a 6-man tag with Randy Orton and Legacy taking on Triple H, Batista, and the hardest kid in his gated private school, Shane McMahon. After some very exciting action, Orton walked out as champ once more after punting the King of Kings in the head. And finally, Edge won another World Heavyweight title when he beat John Cena in a suitably epic last man standing match. When an arena-wide brawl, weapon shots, and big moves couldn't put Cena down, Big Show waddled out and realized the only way to keep Big Match John down was attempted murder, smashing him through a giant stage light with a chokeslam. A spectacular way to cap off the best pay-per-view of the year.